Let's break the mold and stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. Welcome to Stanley on 7. We're here until it's here.
Welcome back. This is Stanley on 7th, a Pull Tab Sports production, your favorite Wild podcast. I'm Ryan Carter with John King. Hey, listen, we've got to talk about last night's game. It was the Wild versus the Blackhawks, 5-0 win. Used to really get excited to see the Wild play the Blackhawks, and then we went through last year where they didn't play each other at all. The Blackhawks kind of have gone the opposite direction of the Wild. They've kind of fallen off of a cliff in a real big hurry. They still have the cornerstone pieces in Kane and Taves. Taves is out. They've tried to make a splash. They've got Fleury, Seth Jones, but it just didn't feel like the Wild versus the Blackhawks. I mean, it felt good to beat them 5-rip, but it was also like nothing else really mattered.
They've got Fleury. I mean, he might be wandering outside on the streets right now with a broken goalie stick. We occupy a significant amount of real estate in that guy's head.
We do, and is maybe that why you're wearing a jacket that represents the same color of his pads last night? I'm not sure about the brown pads, but you went for the jacket that matches him.
As a matter of fact, he never reemerged from the locker room, and I made this jacket out of his pads. Yeah, because he's on an extended leave, I think.
The text thread last night was that his pads reminded me of an exploded breast milk diaper from a baby. You know, it's just the same color, kind of like blah. And I think that's kind of what happened out there too.
Sweet potatoes. You're wearing a hat that's exactly the same color. You realize that, right? So didn't Kane look like he had a blood transfusion, but they didn't give him any blood back. Like he just looked like, this is what we're doing now. Like the only player on that team, DeBrincat and Seth Jones. It was like we were playing against two guys last night.
Yeah. And I think you heard their coach say, like, they've had a couple of hard practices leading up to that day, which is, it always is one of those situations where they're telling you to play simple hockey means you've totally got away from fundamentals and you've kind of lost the club a little bit. Like, they're not going to the net. They're not winning the battles, and you've got to try to force that into them. Their coach said that in a live interview during the game, and I think you could see that in their play. Like, it's just they were getting beat to the hard spots, and give the Wild credit, like they're really good at that. But you're right, they just kind of, for the most part, looked disengaged.
As a local television personality, do you care to talk a little bit about the national broadcast?
We should talk about the national broadcast a little bit. I think they miss on a lot of things, right? And the local broadcast is going to know a lot more about, for sure, the home team's storylines. I think we saw the not the Chicago game, but it was the Boston game where it was
brutal.
Let's just talk entirely about Boston because we have no clue about anything when it comes to the Minnesota Wild.
Last night they knew these things. Kirill Kaprizov is on pace for 108 points. They knew that. They said that about 35 times. And what got under your skin as somebody who does this for a living?
Well, I think the intermission group too, they said the Wild don't have any depth, and that's the concerning part.
That was, Tocchet said that. What does he mean by that?
I'm not sure. And again, that's almost like, wow, you really don't know, because it actually is the depth of this club that is the strength. You know, like anybody they put in, they're without Matt Dumba, Marcus Foligno, their two assistant captains, and they go beat the Blackhawks 5-rip in their building. And it was like an easy game for them.
Tocchet's looking at the Grand Canyon. He's like, it's not a big, it doesn't have depth.
Yeah.
I heard him say that. It was right before the end of the segment and they kind of cut away. But I get some validation out of the national broadcast, sort of. But even on the air, though, it's sort of like, are they a Stanley Cup contender? And everybody was kind of like, Gretzky was doing a weird thing last night where he was like, everybody's good. Everybody gets an award. Everybody, but like they were like begrudgingly allowing us to be in the second tier of playoff contenders, I would say, nationally.
And why is it? And like that's the mold that we're trying to break with the podcast too. It's like everybody thinks of Minnesota as like a nice little club, right? But when it comes down to winning games, I don't think that they get the legitimate respect that they deserve.
No, they don't.
They don't.
It's almost like they wish that Kane and Fleury and the Blackhawks would have rose from the ashes last night. It would have been better TV.
Not only that, I think they expected it.
Yeah, and
like Minnesota's a nice club, but Chicago's got the Stars.
They did give us that odd wake surfing video of
what was that? Of Kirill?
Apparently in the Black Sea, because the water was either he was wake surfing where the Exxon Valdez spill was, or he was literally in the Black Sea. I don't know how close the Black Sea is to Siberia, but that was I was pleasantly surprised by that.
But again, what was so weird about that is it was just a random dart throw. There was like no lead into it, no tag at the end. It just went to a vertical video of Kirill wake surfing. Like no reference. Was that yesterday? Was that?
And how about playing?
Was he doing that into the All-Star game? Like what is this?
How about playing the Lundqvist clip, but not having the audio? Because I guess, I don't know. I mean, I know it's on MSG network radio, but like probably could maybe pay for that so that it makes sense. Yeah, just trust us. Henrik said something funny here. But do you think, going back to last week, I know we haven't had interactions with the guys, but do you think they got the green light in New York?
So I saw on Instagram some other stuff, some other parties, and I was creeping around to see if we could recognize anybody. Didn't see anybody, so that was probably a good thing. But I think you look at the Islander game, and you might be able to say there's a chance some of them had a time to celebrate the retirement of Hank's jersey. I think they came out great, gangbusters against the Islanders in the first period, and it was a great first period. And then what tends to happen when you're playing a little guilty is that exactly. You hunker down, you say, okay, we got to be good. And
you're play, good for a little bit.
You're good for 20 minutes. And then it catches up to you. And then the next 20 minutes, you're kind of like, oh boy, this we're in one now. This is a battle, long change, don't want to do the work. And the other team finds a way to claw back. That's exactly what happened. And then third period, they found it again. Well,
what a perfect scenario. You ever been in a bar and it starts snowing big fluffy flakes? And you're sort of like, well, what are we supposed to do now? I mean, those guys, you said you found some Instagram with Hank in like a white tuxedo after party.
Yeah.
Now, when you were looking, kind of doing your CSI work.
I was going to say, hold on, let's rephrase that. It's not like I was creeping.
Well, you were creeping. So did you see any like half empty bowls of borscht? Or borscht? Or did you see like Fiala's moisturizer maybe on a end table? Any signs of the guys?
Any signs of them? No, I didn't.
Shoot.
Yeah. Again, it was a brief video, and maybe Zuccarello was there, and it looked like somebody brought a kid, and we passed over him quickly, and I didn't notice or something. But no, I didn't notice anything like that.
Should we hit Boldy before our guest as well?
Well, let's hit a couple of things. We do have a guest, but going into the All-Star break and into the halfway point of the season, I think we're 41 down right now. So exactly
half. Yep.
So 9-0-1 since the Winter Classic. Looked like they were maybe going to stumble a little bit. The Wild have 28 wins, their first 41. That's the best in franchise history. I think they're third in points percentage, fifth in points percentage at 72. They're top echelon NHL. They've been phenomenal. Obviously a great run as of late, but you can continue on to say like the storylines. Kevin Fiala, points in 12 straight games.
Fiala-Ueri. We called it. He was a giant Band-Aid when we needed him. God bless his beautiful face.
Well, and we were all over incorporate the beautiful babies. How about Boldy?
Yep.
He's 10 points, 10 games.
The whole state loves this kid. And the one thing I think we're going to change, we're not going to call him a baby anymore. Okay. He's a blue chipper. He was the 12th overall pick in the draft. He is a world-class hockey player, and he's now on our team. I mean, because he is just, I think there's more love for Boldy. I mean, besides maybe the Russian or something, people are raving about him. It's like he's everyone's son, that's suddenly playing on the Wild. He is just a treat.
Well, I'm sticking with beautiful baby. He's still young. And I watched something on the Chicklets. It was Troy Terry talking about Zegras and how the 20-year-old kid comes in and he's got all the confidence in the world, where Troy Terry was like, I went in and felt, I wish I had his confidence. I went in and felt that I had to earn the respect of the veterans with my effort, with work, being the last one in the gym. And I'm not saying Boldy's not doing that stuff, but he's kind of entered the equation a lot like Zegras, where they're not in awe. They're not scared of the situation. They're not distracted by by the veterans or the group or the team or the success or management, coaches, whatever. Just go out, execute, and play. And that's exactly what he's done in 10 points, 10 games. I mean, a lot of times you're looking at these guys and saying they stood out, and it's usually in a negative way. For him, it's always in a positive way, right?
Great vision, playmaker. At some point, our beautiful baby, I think Fiala might try to adopt him. Or just, I don't know. Is he living with Fiala?
No,
Where's Boldy
he's living with Greenway now. He moved in last week.
Oh my
Jordan
goodness.
Greenway.
This doesn't seem like a good idea. I think that's a messy apartment, right?
Well, maybe a couple pizza boxes, but
okay,
that's all right.
And Greeny got his wallet's a little fatter too.
Well, we'll have to get to that at some point, but the fact of the matter is the Wild are good and they're a legitimate contender. And you could go down that roster and say, where's the weak spot? And the national broadcast might say their depth.
Yeah, their depth.
But you lose your number one goalie and the backup goalie comes in and rifles off like 7 in a row, right?
We actually have 2 Wild teams stacked on top of each other.
Yeah. You lose your top 2 defenders, Brodin and Spurgeon, and you somehow win 5 straight games, right? And you could go on and on. You lose Dumba, Foligno, and you don't skip a beat, like the heartbeat of your club, and you don't skip a beat, right? So everything's going well, smooth sailing. The Wild are contenders, and the story's going exactly how we like it to it, or we want it to. And now, though, I think this is a good time to bring in our guest.
Stanley on 7th is sponsored by Wachtler Law, WACHTLER law.com. If you find yourself hurt, arrested, or fired, I don't know about you, that's a dark alley you don't want to walk down. And if you do, you better have someone who's got 25 years of experience, is fiercely independent, and afraid of nobody in your corner. And if you have that, I think it's going to be A-OK. That's wachtlerlaw.com. This is not going to be easy for everyone. As I was leaving the athletic club today, I heard an old woman talking to an old guy, and they were talking about the Wild, and they were just like, "What a treat! What a great time it's been watching the Wild." And so our spirit animal for this show has been Rat from Beer League, who told me early on, "This is the way it is, brother. Just get used to it. We're going to keep on winning till we get the Stanley Cup. Put your head out the window and let the wind go through your hair. This is what we do now," right? So if he's our spirit animal, I'm going to text him. We're about to look into the dark soul. This gentleman is named Big K. He went through some trauma as a Minnesota sports fan, and he's just given up. He's not doing it anymore. He swore off Minnesota sports. And he is going to tell us why we shouldn't get our hopes up. We're going to listen to that, and then we're going to hang up on him, and we're going to try to, hopefully he doesn't hit it. He hits us. It'll probably be more severe than Tocchet saying we don't have depth. So be ready. I mean, the soft underbelly is about to take some rabbit punches. So everyone listening that's warming your feet by the Minnesota wildfire, we're going to the Ghost of Christmas Past, folks. This is Big K.
And he's coming for it.
He's coming. He's ready. He's going to be honest with us. This is what he's enjoying watching us get our hopes up because he thinks he knows what's going to happen.
So is he one of those guys that's watching the game through the neighbor's window, or is he just not watching, or is he watching with the hopes that it's just a fall from grace, and the further the fall, the better?
Think of it completely differently. So I'm trying to give you a metaphor. He just, if he had a jacket and it had a bunch of Minnesota patches on it, the day he had his bad experience, which we'll get into, he tore that off. And now he would bet against the other team, against the Wild in the playoffs. I mean, he is gone. There's no it's like he never was from there. He is gone. And he's just he's a Tom Brady fan. He's gone. There's nothing there. He's just buried it deep inside, if there is. So this is Big K. His actual identity is being protected. To get us started, will you tell us the Minnesota Vikings story? You sent me some photos that were unbelievable. It looked like you shattered a bottle. So at some point as a Minnesota sports fan, you said no more, and you had trauma. Just tell us, this is the story before you became the Joker. We want to hear what happened to you.
Yeah, the dream died, right? It was that was the year that we got Favre. And I remember being in St. Cloud and watching those games. I was just out of college. And it got boring on Sundays. Like, we just rolled teams. And I remember at one point I didn't even watch anymore. So you kind of are waiting for the team to get to the playoffs and see what they can do. And my buddies, I think they were in their senior year at the U. There were a lot of them were playing football up there. So they had the football house, and, you cram 70 people into a living room on all those couches that are, stacked up like a theater seating. And we had gamblers in the second half of that game against the Saints in their cars. Who knows what they were like gambling at the time, probably like $100 or something, because you're in college, you're broke. But, everyone's kind of waiting for that game to go to shit, like Minnesota sports always do. And everyone knows what happened to Brett Favre's ankle. And I remember walking around the kitchen after that game, and that's where that cup came from. It was like a Vikings Favre cup, and everyone was giving them out. It was like, it's typical Minnesota. Everybody brings the food. They're all having a good time. And then, it's just utter heartbreak and pandemonium. So that was the end for me. I drew the line there, and I said, I'm done with Minnesota sports. I've moved enough that it's been easier. I think right after that, I moved to Chicago. They won 3 cups. It's kind of weird watching, hockey and having a rooting interest into it past April when you're from Minnesota. But you kind of get a taste for that, and then you start betting against them, with legalized sports gambling, and it's the best thing ever.
Okay. Just hold on.
And I'm loving it.
Let's let people slowly hate you. Let's not do it all at once. Did you break the Favre glass? Did you shatter that on the ground?
I think I went into the bathroom, and it was like, that was the first indication that I had that the rest of the house was about to look like a war zone, and it did.
Okay. So Big K, our position on this podcast is that we're breaking the mold because of issues like you've been through. We've talked about the safest place to watch the Minnesota Vikings is only through your neighbor's window. We understand the trauma of Minnesota sports. But this team, Billy G comes in. He's got his balls in a wheelbarrow. He changes the whole team. He changes the culture. These guys love each other. Next man up, teammates. They're on a heater. We got the Russian baby. We got the beautiful baby. Everybody is just ecstatic about the Wild, and they're playing really well. Why on earth should we worry about Ghost of Christmas Past when it didn't look anything like the team on the ice right now?
Yeah, it's funny because I remember we've been talking about this, and then you call me this afternoon, and you're like, oh, come on. The Wild have won 10 of 15 games, 6 in a row. So you bring me in when everybody's just looking in the mirror. You just got the haircut, maybe a new pair of shoes. And I was like, well, shit, let's look at what this team's all about. I mean, that's kind of what I do for work. So I started looking into scoring. Shit, and goals per game, they're third in the league. They're behind only Colorado and Florida. I looked at shots on goal. They're 21st in the league. So it's not like they're, getting a ton of shots on net. Like they're kind of middle of the pack. It's not like it's kind of fluky in that regard. I looked at goals against average, save percentage. They're not at the top of the league like a Rangers who are on a heater right now. So you're not too worried about goaltending cooling off and then the team falling apart. And then I started looking at who we played. So we've played 10 playoff teams in the West. We've won 4 of those games, 3 against the Ducks, 1 against the Kings. If you expand that to the East, we have 9 wins in our 28 wins against playoff teams. That means that 2/3, it's almost 70%. It's 32%. So 68% of our wins are coming against non-playoff teams. Minnesota this is an F-word team. It's frauds.
Well, you hit him with something, Carter. What do you make of this? We're beating up on the little sisters of the poor, he says.
No, I think you can make the argument, the playoff teams, and that's obviously very fluid. That's a snapshot in time. There are teams that are in and out of the playoffs, and then there are teams that haven't played as many games where they've got a bunch in hand, and when they play those games, they will be playoff teams. So that argument's hard to get after, but I think you look at the Wild roster and like, where is there a weakness? Where do you have doubt? You talk about save percentage. Like, is it the goalie position? I don't see a spot where it's a glaring weakness and it's like, we have to shore this up. We've talked about this before too. Like, at the deadline, if the Wild want to go out and get somebody, it's almost like they need to be careful who they get, because anything they bring in could be an actual net negative.
Yeah, you're talking about like chemistry. Giroux has been floated around. I mean, it's interesting. I don't think the Wild. This is like a classic. If you're breaking up, it's not a you thing. It's a everything else in the league thing. So if I look at the roster and the way that they're scoring, you got a guy like Kirill, who's in my opinion, I think can and probably will be a generational talent. He's awesome to watch. I mean, he's fun to watch. He's changed kind of the motor of that team. But when I start stacking them up against, so I grew up, North Stars went away. I grew up a Chicago fan growing up. So now people really can hate me. We didn't have a hockey team. Sorry, Minnesota. I still like the Vikings at that point. But it was always the Red Wings and the Avs. You know, it didn't matter that they had Roenick and Belfour and Chelios and Amante and some of those great teams they put together. And when I look at the Wild and what they've got specifically in the West, I look at Vegas. I'm real worried about Vegas. Colorado's a machine, you know, and it would be, I think Colorado in the past has had a question mark at goalie. It would be so fitting for them to beat us like Minnesota style with Kemper in net this year. So I'm not even going to put that as a knock. I don't think it's necessarily an issue with the Wild's roster. I think it's just how they stack up against the rest of the teams in the league that is going to be a trick for them, at least this year. And you know, we'll kind of see what happens moving forward.
This is where I think you fall into a perpetual trap. And this is what I think Minnesota sports fans love to do, is they can't put faith in Darcy Kemper when he's in their net, but all of a sudden you easily can when he's in somebody else's net. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like, this guy will never win us a game. And then all of a sudden he's in somebody else's net and he's like, this guy's he's going to beat us. It's unbelievable. Right. And it's like these self-fulfilling prophecies. And it's crazy. It absolutely is crazy. But the Wild are like, they're legit. And you go back and watch that Colorado game, Darcy Kemper, and go back to the following year. Darcy does not want to play the Wild. He does not want to play the Wild. And I had a chance to play with Darcy. Great guy. But he does not want to have to play against the team that brought him into this league. I can guarantee you that. Right. And if I'm looking at that spot, I take the opposite side of the coin that you do right there. Like, I want Colorado because their number one guy is Darcy. And it's pretty easy to occupy space in his head if you're a member of the Wild.
So
Colorado has 5 players that have over 40 points. We have 2. We've got Kirill with 53, and then you've got a big drop off with Zuccarello down to 42. So, I mean, I think I saw an Instagram post. It's like fastest skater. You've got Makar, who's faster than McDavid. He's on the back end. And that, I guess if I had to point to one thing that I think we make up for in depth, but we don't have a guy, it's probably on the back end. And I think of Stanley Cup teams over the last 15 years, and almost always I can name a Norris Trophy finalist off the back end. You got the Duncan Keiths, the Dowdies. You know, they always seem to have that piece. If you look at our shots allowed, they're not crazy in the league. So I think we make up for that. But it just seems like once it gets to playoff time, that is the one kind of piece that we're missing, because it becomes a little bit more like chess and a little bit less like checkers and running and gunning in the regular season. And
this has gotten into a debate between Colorado and Minnesota, but I think the complaint always out of Colorado is simply that they're top heavy. So they're always going to have groups of, like, 4 guys with 40 points because they don't have anybody else that can score points. And they play 2 lines. All of a sudden, you get into playoff hockey where you roll 4. The Wild have been doing it for 82 games, and they're just flat out better at it. And they catch you by surprise. Like, look at that. And I talked to Karen about this. I hate these acronym lines, but the Greenway, Erickson, Ekfelino line. They have not given up a goal 5-on-5 yet this year. So you put them out there against those 40 pointers right now at the halfway point of the year, and they're not scoring 5-on-5. Stay out of the box. Erickson Ek also leads the league in penalty drawn differential, right? So he's going to draw penalties. He's going to put Colorado on the kill. And he's going to make sure McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog don't score. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. I want Colorado.
I think you should consider coming back, Big K.
We'll get him.
You should come back. We're going to keep checking in with you. I want to finish with, you said something to me that was just so great. You said, yeah, man, you called me right when they're on a 5-game win streak. And you said, but you know what? It's going to be even better because, you're going to get open heart surgery with no anesthetic. I mean, you're looking in the window at the puppy that you want to buy, and then it's not going to wake up. I mean, so you're saying if we're ass over kettle in love with this hockey team, we're about to get absolutely smoked in the playoffs and the same old bullshit. You believe that's about to happen?
I think it's probably I think we'll make a good push into the playoffs. There's a chance we can make it out of the first round. I say we, even living in Austin, Texas right now, because I love Minnesota as a state. But, Ryan, you brought up self-fulfilling prophecy. Chinese and Japanese Americans are more likely to die on the 4th of every month from a heart attack than any other day. And it's because that day rhymes with unlucky in their culture. It's deemed as it rhymes with death. It's deemed as an unlucky day. And I do think that that's the one thing Minnesota is going to have to kind of grow into. I look at Vegas, I look at Colorado, I look at teams that have been kind of knocking on the door and going through that we're good, but it just takes so much, and you need luck to get to the Stanley Cup. Like, I don't know. We need a little Ted Lasso in our life. We need a little Minnesota belief. So I love what you guys are doing. Trust me when I say I would, for the state of Minnesota, love nothing more than to see the Stanley Cup there. Man, I don't open myself up to that anymore because I'm scared to get hurt.
So what's your, before we let you go, what's your ideal told you so situation? Like the Wild finish the season number 1 seed and they lose to the 8 seed in 5 games. Like what's your ideal told you so? Bet the underdog, give it to us.
Just dunking on us.
No, I don't think they're going to finish 1 seed for sure, not even one in their own division. But I think they'll probably, I'm a big fan of getting a lead and then blowing it, like the Minnesota Miracle game, which is a joke to me. Everyone was going, "Oh, we got this." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." And it took a miracle for us to win that game. Ridiculous. So I'm looking for like a 3-2 game 7 at home scenario, and we just get carved.
So I actually now have one more question I want to ask you about the Wild. Like maybe the coolest story coming out of the Wild this year is how good they are with the extra attacker. So you talked about how they haven't played playoff teams and they've maybe been behind in some of these games, but they've found ways to win late. So they've scored like 11 goals or 12 goals with the extra attacker, and they found a way to win those. Is your argument here that, hey, listen, they're falling behind because they're not that good and they're getting lucky and that luck is going to run out eventually? Or are you of the belief that, hey, these guys are actually legitimately good and it just takes them 60 minutes?
I think they're a good team. I just don't think that we have the elite talent at the top. You say Colorado's top heavy. I think we need 12 rounds to beat a team. And I worry about teams that can get off to fast starts, teams that really have that kind of top end talent. I look at Eichel coming back to Vegas. I look at what Pittsburgh's doing. I think once you kind of run into those buzzsaws and you've got that self-fulfilling prophecy kind of mentality that it's just unavoidable for Minnesota sports until we break that. It's easy to kind of fall into the oh shit, here we go again. Because we all feel it as fans. Like, it is what it is. So, like I said, I hope for the state of hockey. I was talking to a kid the other day. We're making a commercial. He's like, how many cups have the Wild won? And I'm like, geez, rough. And I love what you guys are doing, trying to change it. I hope someday to open my heart back up, but it's just, I've watched this movie too many times, and I know the ending.
All right.
We all know.
Hey, go back to your dark, empty soul, and thanks for joining us. We'll check in with you later. Well, I think we're going to bet with you once the playoffs start. We'll get a little gambling corner going here. That's Big K. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll continue to talk about all of the Ghosts of Christmas Past that you brought up with us. But peace, brother. Stanley on 7th is sponsored by Bigwood Brewery, and their beer of the moment right now is Bad Axe, and we have it right here in front of us. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Bad Axe because it is no joke. So Bad Axe is 9.8% ABV. It's an IPA, and it's not always on tap in the tap room, but it is right now. And I think if you think of what we just did on what we're doing on this episode, we're kind of grinding an axe with our guest and everything else. Bigwood's also having an 8th anniversary celebration at the tap room in White Bear Lake on Saturday, February 12th. Big party, live music, anniversary brew, food, giveaways, ton of fun. And we'll do a trivia question this week. The trivia question is, we're all saying Kirill's going to get 108 points. Who previously had the most points for the Wild, and how many points was it? Whoever can get that answer right and gets picked will get a $25 gift card at the Big Wood Brewery Tap Room in White Bear.
He's hurt.
Here's what he said in summary. I don't even know that he said it. Basically, he believes we are a big man in a small pond. So we would be like
the Wild, you mean?
That's right. The Wild are like a good team in the middleweight division, and there's a bunch of heavyweights out there like St. Louis, Nashville, Colorado, Vegas, Pittsburgh. So he's saying, yeah, you're good, but you're not great. And there's a bunch of teams that are great, and there's a bunch of teams that have done this whole learn how to lose before you learn how to win. They've won a round or two or three, or they've been to the finals, and they're getting to that point where they're ready to get all the way. And we haven't even started our playoff journey. That's what I think he said. He's just like, yeah, man. I love what did he say? It's if this was a relationship, it's not me, it's you. Or no, it's not you, it's me. Yeah. Basically, yeah, you're good, but there's a whole bunch of people outside in line that are great.
I think he was holding back a little too. I think he was trying to be nice and say you have a good team, but I think what he meant was you have a nice team.
Yeah.
You have a nice team, and it's fun, and you've got
enjoy yourself.
Kirill. Have fun during the regular season, but when it comes down to winning, you just don't have a chance.
Get a bobblehead, get a rally robe, but
enjoy your dog. That'll be fun. Your hot dog, your beer, have a good wave your towel in the playoffs and keep it as a souvenir. That's what Minnesotans do. Put it on your wall, but you won't have a parade. Sorry.
Yeah. And I'll open up to you. I've been struggling a little bit. I've been thinking about the playoffs all the time, and I don't know why. And part of it's because we're winning every game. It was a little bit like his Vikings story. Like, we win all the time. And so I'm just thinking about, I have this deep fear of Nashville. I don't know why. We've only played them once this year. They beat us 5-2. Yeah, I looked. And they terrify me, and I don't know anything about them. Good goalie. Seems like they're mean. St. Louis with, the Winter Classic, all that stuff. Colorado, I don't know. I'm not as scared of Colorado, but I'm doing the Minnesota thing. Yeah. I've already said we need to win one round this year. I think that's what I'm saying. We need to win one round. I've said that to people in the last week.
But like, you're setting yourself up, why have such why sell yourself short? Why not be like, this is the year to win it all?
And it feels so good to be like Rat. to be like, hey, get used to it, brother. This is what we're doing.
But you've just been trained for so long to just be ready. And I wish you would have answered like candidly. Like, I expect the Wild to finish very strong and then lose it in 5 games to whomever they play, right? Because I think that's what he secretly wants. And for some reason, that's what like you're internally feeling is like, hey, I have a feeling this is going to happen and I'm a little bit scared.
So if he was going soft, this is what he texted me. I'm going to read a little bit of this. 10 of the last 15 games, 6 in a row. Only one of those teams has a winning record outside of the Rangers. The teams they beat in that span have combined for 39 wins combined. Depth. They're in good shape when it comes to goals per game, blah, blah, blah. And if you look at goals and blah, 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 nothing there. And that's with us being 21st in the league on shots on goal. Weaknesses. No Kirill scoring. 4-3 losses to Avs, Nashville, Seattle, ? So he's saying if 97's not going, big problem.
Yeah.
He says better teams, Avalanche, Florida, Vegas, Pitt, Tampa, Boston, Washington. Here's what those teams have that we don't. Back-end depth and toughness. You see this from shots allowed. Norris candidates on the back end. He mentioned that. Grit. It's not a hard requirement, and Moose is a tough guy, but we don't have a guy that is a literal piece of shit. We've talked about this.
You want a rat. Yeah. You want a legit rat.
A buddy of mine, when I tried to talk about that on the podcast, he says, we have guys that are hard to play against. We don't have anybody you hate to play against. Mm-hmm. That's what he means. I love that line. A guy who is literally a piece of shit. He was holding back, I guess, a little bit. Burrows, he talked about. Claude Lemieux, Matthew Tkachuk, Kadri's, that kind of guy. Top end talent, he mentioned this. They got 5 guys. We got Kirill. Goaltending, he still thinks is weak. Yeah, he held back on us. Vegas is super scary. He names 10 of their players. We're built tough, but this is like taking a Bronco to a race against a Bugatti. There's a difference between competing and beating. The biggest thing is that we're still Minnesota. We don't have the Ted Lasso belief. I don't, and I'm waiting for the shoe to drop in the second half. Oh, man, son. That is the ghost of Christmas past, and I don't want him carrying those chains through my bedroom. I'm not going to be able to sleep.
He makes some solid points for himself, and that is
without any doubt.
So 97 scoring. There's no question. That's every team in the league. If you don't have your top guy going, you're not going to win. So why is that unique to Minnesota? It's not. And the NHL is also a copycat league. And everybody wants to do what worked before. What I actually really like and admire about the Wild is that they're not building it and doing it like somebody else did before. We don't need a traditional number 1 center. Ryan Hartman, you're good enough. Right? We don't need a traditional shutdown third line. We're going to play our third line like a second line, or like Joel Eriksson-Ek. You guys can play with the puck in the offensive zone. You can turn it over. You can make a play 3-on-2. You can do all of that stuff. I don't care. Like, they're not doing it like everybody else in the past has. And that's what I think he's fallen in the trap of, is saying like, oh, you can't win if you're not the toughest, if you don't have a legitimate rat that everybody hates, if you don't have a Norris guy, and you don't have the best goalie in the league. Some of that stuff is true, and they are needs, and you do need it. But part of the reason that this club has had success is because they do it differently than anybody else, and nobody knows how to play against them. And they're all committed. So you look, there's good teams that come in or that they go to, and they don't know how to play against the Wild. It's 4 lines, just relentless, the same style, shift after shift after shift, and by the end, 60 minutes goes by, and that's why they probably score quite a bit in the final couple minutes. Like, teams are just like, uncle, like, how long are we going to do this? And you see them throw the pucks. Like, they just throw it. They get rid of it. I don't want it. Don't come after me. Quit skating so hard. Like, my night's almost over. Let's make this easy. And the next thing you know, it's in the back of the net. They got 5 more minutes in overtime. They don't want to play, and then they win it, right? And he has a legit argument too. If you say, okay, so the Wild have scored, and I don't know the exact number of games, but they've scored like 12 extra attacker goals. If they don't get those goals, let's just say they get 2, all of a sudden they go from 28 wins down to 20, right? And that's a much different record, a much different spot in the standings, and a much different feel.
You know what that gap is about? Belief.
That's the difference.
And it really does work.
It does.
If you say out loud, the Wild are going to win the Stanley Cup, you do have a feeling that it's more likely to happen if you say it. And then it's, believe until you make other believers, right? I think it's a real thing.
And you expect it. And I still go back to the first video we saw come out of Wild Training Camp. Bill Guerin with Jared Spurgeon. Why are we here? We're here to have fun. We're here to compete. And Bill Guerin said, no, we are here to win. You see that big silver thing? That's what we want.
Yep.
Like nothing else. Like not to have a good season, not to win a round. We're here to win. And he's legit. That's all. I think all he cares about. And we could get into that too. Like that's one thing I love about Bill Guerin is I don't think he's just here to do a job. I think he cares about legacy, and he wants his 5th cup, and he wants his 6th cup.
You look at how he's designed. We've both spent a decent amount of time inside the Wild's space, whether it's at Tria or Excel. He has swapped out numerous photos that used to be like guys hugging at a stadium series or whatever, and now it's just a giant picture of the Stanley Cup.
Right.
You walk around that facility, you see that 37-pound metal object on a regular basis. He's not scared to show it. He's not scared to talk about it. And that's what it's about. It's a disgrace that the state of hockey has never won a cup, and we need the cherry on top. That's why we're doing the pod. And I do think this team, believes they don't have the baggage we have. Marcus Foligno
nobody in that room cares.
Didn't watch Brett Favre throw across his body, or they don't know about Patrick Sharp 5 years in a row. There's no legacy. They don't have any of this bullshit that's in our heads. So let's get on board and ride with them.
But one thing I think they do feel, and I do think is real, is that you've got 18,000 in there for a home game, and you feel the nervousness, whether it's conscious or not, right? As a player, you feel the nervousness in the building, and if it doesn't exist, if that mold is broken, then sky is the absolute limit, right? And again, like Bill Guerin, give him a bunch of credit. He comes from Pittsburgh, where you have the pieces that you absolutely need. You have your number 1 center, Sidney Crosby. You've got your number 2 center, Evgeny Malkin. Great power play. You've got your number 1 D-man, Chris Letang. Great goaltending, Marc-Andre Fleury. And then into Matt Murray. And he comes in here and he's doing it in a completely different way. He doesn't have Sid. He doesn't have Evgeny Malkin. He doesn't have Chris Letang, but he's still finding ways to win, and he still believes, and that's what's driving him.
So you're saying we could be turning the tables. Everyone would say you're playing chess and checkers. Like we're playing a different game, but the game we're playing can beat the traditional way.
So this is a copycat league until somebody comes through and does it different. So you think like the old days, let's just go from 2000 to 2010. It's the biggest, toughest, meanest team that's going to win it. And then it kind of switched, and give Chicago credit. They kind of did it. It's skill. It's 4 lines. We're going to outscore you. We're not going to shut you down. We're not going to cross check you in your teeth, right? We're not going to beat you up. We're going to outplay you, and we're going to beat you. And now we're still at the tail end of that. And that's what Tampa is. Skilled scoring, right? And then it's going to take something different. And everybody's trying to copy the Tampa recipe. And I think that's what Colorado's trying to copy exactly, is Tampa's recipe. You've got Stamkos, Kucherov, it's McKinnon, it's Rantanen. You've got the goal, you've got the D, you've got Makar, Hedman. Like, we're going to try to out Tampa. And that's the way we're going to win this next cup. Until somebody comes in and does it completely different. And it's a left hook out of left field that nobody saw coming. And that's Bill Guerin and the Minnesota Wild. We're 4 lines. We're tough. We're hard to play against. We're not sexy. We don't care. We're not selfish. We're solid. Let's play.
That was really good. I believe you. The one question, the only one that's on my mind is, do we need a rat bastard or not? Will Bill Guerin add a complete prick at the deadline?
I'm pretty confident the answer to that is no. I think that they have rat bastards in there.
Hartman will come out and get his switchblade out, get his half-faced blade. Is that what it's called?
I do believe that those guys want to win bad, and they took hometown discounts, not because they're hometown guys, because they got something to prove.
I love it. The other team that's doing, I like this idea of chess and checkers. And not being a copycat. The other team that's interesting to me, just real quick, is I think what Yzerman's doing in Detroit is fascinating.
Yeah.
He's going to there's going to be 6 defensemen over 6'4". I mean, that team's going to be good soon, like contending for a cup.
Apparently, he just likes to enjoy himself and get into a state of mind where he can just think about it. Did you see that interview?
The puff. well worded, the question. It was genius in a way to sort of let him say what he wanted without saying anything.
Well, it was amazing how he just went with it. But no, they are.
They're building a completely different model.
But he understands. I think he understands. Like, I can't chase. I can't beat. But I know, like, he knows hockey. I know how I can beat that.
His model's closer to your Anaheim team.
Yes.
I mean, he's building giant back end that you can't hurt when you dump it deep.
It's coming back.
Yeah.
And I believe it's cyclical. And if you can get big, strong, size always wins. Size always wins. As long as they can match mobility and skill, size will always win. And he's trying to develop a big team. Now, if I'm playing Big K right now, what I say is the challenge for the Minnesota Wild is the fact that they don't have big D.
Yeah,
so when it comes
undersized.
to boxing up, yes. So it's Spurgeon, it's Goligoski, it's Brodin. Now they have to play in groups of 5, use their mobility to their strength, but it will come down to a battle. And do they have the size? That is the only question mark.
Yeah, I mean, Brodin didn't even make it out of the first round. He was hurt by Vegas in 6 games last year.
And I don't think that they're going to get run out of the building and everybody's going to get hurt and all of a sudden going to be playing with the Iowa Wild. I just think that it's cool to have a good stick and to be solid and mobile, but it does get into I'm going to take this from you and I'm going to look into your soul.
It's a completely different game when they dump that in and they just try to bounce you off the wall as hard as they can. It's nuts. Hey, you want to rattle through some mid-season awards quick?
Let's do that because the team, the first half has been phenomenal, and let's get through some.
Let's just take a minute. What a treat it's been. 41 games in.
It has been nice.
Thank you, Minnesota Wild. Thank you, Billy Guerin. Thank you,
Dean Evison. Mean Dean.
Thank you, Russian. I love the Russian so much.
It's good that this podcast is going to be running a little long. I mean, there's some
it's mid-season.
Yeah, this is.
And we got to counter.
Big
K put some storm clouds over us. We need a little sunshine to finish. We got to bring people back.
Did I meet it? Did I meet it with a little bit too much intensity there?
I liked watching you when he was saying stuff, and you were just like
boiling.
Yeah, it's like you're like it's few good men, and you're just waiting to get Nicholson to snap on the stand. And he held back so much.
He did.
He was trying to be played.
He wants to be a good dude.
That text is more like who he is.
Bronco
Bugatti, all the things. And that didn't take him long to write.
No.
That came like 30 seconds after I asked.
That's 3 dots 3 times, and then it was there.
Boom. So give me your questions, and we'll
mid-season awards. Who's your MVP?
MVP of the team, Zuccarello. I love him, and Carell's not the same player without him. He makes him happy, he makes him feel safe, and I think he's under. I don't think we talk about him enough. I think he's absolutely huge for us.
I think you're right. I think MVP, most valuable player. Gosh, that one's hard. So I see Zuccarello there, but I think of if you remove him from the lineup, how many wins does it cost you versus somebody else? I think I have to go MVP probably. And it's maybe from left field is Marcus Foligno. And just because he scored some big goals, he plays a certain role, penalty kill, but the leadership stuff, you look at the beautiful baby and the young guys, and the Wild have had like 7 guys debut, first NHL game this year. They've all come in and contributed. Like the atmosphere there. You can look on the ice, and Marcus has done a lot of great stuff. But in terms of just the team, if he's not there, I think it's a different club and a different record. So I give him the MVP.
I'm down with that too. Love Moose.
Unsung hero.
Unsung hero, meaning he isn't actually being talked about at all.
I'll jump in and let you think about it. For me, it's Jordy Ben. The Wild Blue Line has been beat up, and he jumped on the grenade the other day that said, hey, when Broad's back, I'll be out. And now Dums is out, so he stayed in the lineup. But he's a selfless guy. Where training camp, and I think he'd probably say it too, he struggled in training camp. And he had a game with Kalen Addison where it looked like, man, maybe this was a bad deal. But he's all of a sudden come in and been very steady. Do you notice him making poor plays? No, not at all. He's accepted the role, and he's been phenomenal. They've shorted up, like you think they've missed Spurgeon, Brodin, Dumba, Johnny Merrill just got off the COVID list. They've missed all of their guys for extended periods of time. And Jordy Ben has moved absolutely everywhere. He's been top line left side, second one right side, like everywhere. And he has played well. So for me, on the back end, unsung hero, Jordy Ben.
I'll go Kulikov. He's contributed a lot more than you think. He stepped up for Kirill. As my brother said, it looked like the lead singer of Rascal Flatts getting in a fight. But I just, everything, the frosted tips, him and Merrill are they're both kind of in there. I think it's really important that both those D were good.
I agree. Most improved,
got to be Hartman. I mean, he's been unbelievable. He could probably win 5 awards, but I mean, he's on pace to double his point output, and he was a first rounder. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, so I agree. Most improved, most impressive is probably Ryan Hartman as well, how he's been able to do it. He's adjusted his game to play with a couple of skill guys. He's been in there. I think 1B would probably be Kakinen, though. And, last year he had a good run, but when he got the net after Talbot went out after the Winter Classic, it
was awesome.
It's been great. And for me, he's kind of been most improved. He looks to have taken that maturity step, that next full step. Not just like, how is he going to be? It seems like that step is completed. He's there now. Now that's the new floor. What's the biggest feel-good story of the year so far?
Biggest, you start because you had time to think about all this.
So it's for sure the extra attacker, right? The best
12
story.
goals and the empty net.
And you can look on that, and I do think there's a legitimate argument for both sides of that coin, where it's they haven't played well enough to get the lead, and they haven't played well enough in the first 55 minutes, but they put it together. Like, why can't they do that for the first 55 minutes? You could certainly make that argument, but it has been absolutely magical and fun to watch. And I think you can get into a spot where you have momentum and you have belief, and all of a sudden it takes you to new levels. And I think this extra attacker magic has done exactly that.
I'll go Boldy. The way he scored in Boston, his parents being on camera. I think he's been storybook for us for about a month here, and it seems pure and good. So that fits your brief too. The beautiful baby's arrival, Matt Boldy.
I don't want to be a homer here. So a player that you think needs to improve.
Okay, you start.
I don't have one. And I know that sounds like a homer, but seriously, who needs to be better?
Who needs to be
who do you
better?
need more out of? Like, you look at that roster, and I think everywhere across the line, you could go to Colorado, you could go to Vegas, and you can say, who do you need more of? Vegas is going to say Robin Lehner. Colorado's going to say, we probably need more from Darcy Kemper or whomever it is. Maybe it's their second D, Sam Girard. Like, we need more. They need more if they're going to win. Who do you need more of?
Marco Rossi.
Yeah, like there's not, like, legit,
For
there's
real.
nothing. You're
Sit
getting
down
the
there,
most
hey.
out of absolutely everybody.
Let's get Rossi in that crock pot with some tater tots and bring him up looking like Boldy. We need more out of Rossi.
And Big K might have an argument there. He might have an argument where he can say, like, who do you need more from? Nobody? Everybody's playing above their pay grade. And they'll come back down to earth when the going gets tough. And
Let's not bring Big K into this.
Big K's not coming into the awards.
Jesus, I can hear the chains dragging on my floor. Ghost of Christmas Past. Is he the one in the chains? Gabe, do you know?
I don't.
You
All
have
right, so
anything else?
no, let's just, as we wrap this, man, on pace, Kirill Kaprizov, the national broadcast, knew that he's on pace for 108. What did we put him at for points?
I said 97 when we did the pregame.
And it was 40 goals.
Yep.
And he just hit 19 and 41. So this guy's on pace.
Can we-
Like, we pegged it.
Can we close? So he's in Vegas. He probably just landed in Vegas tonight. I believe, is he unchaperoned?
I think his parents are there. But no, he's not unchaperoned.
His parents are there?
I think his parents are going to Vegas, yeah.
Now, does he have a PR representative from
Yes.
the? Oh, he does.
He'll have a couple people from the Wild.
Okay. But I'm worried. This is, again, a Minnesota thing. I'm worried, like, I don't know, Panarin and Ovechkin, or some people are going to take them and they're going to have a fun night with them and be like, what are you doing playing in the flyover
Why are you
states?
playing so hard?
Yeah,
you
what-
think
what
they're
do
going to recruit him?
I don't know. Like, hey, man, you
You got
got
4 years left.
Like, I don't know. I wish more people from the Wild were there. Like, do you remember when they asked Zuccarello? This was one of the coolest things. So I'm kind of in love with Zuccarello right now. The fact that New York City loves him.
Is that why you have the same hairstyle?
I hope so. So he's got great, crazy eyes too. So I lived in New York for 5 years. If someone loves you in New York City, you are doing something right. I mean, and they love him. They chanted his name when he was playing against them. And so I don't even know what I was saying. They asked him about the Rangers. So every interview when we played that game was about the Rangers and Hank, and he said, "Yeah, that was great. I had a good time there, but I'm a Minnesota Wild guy now. This is my team now." I kind of wish Zuki was with him in Vegas. Like he's going to be corrupted. Someone's going to take him a mini bar. It's like Ovechkin. I don't know. I wish we had more people around Kirill to keep him from. I don't want him to see stuff. I want him to stay with us. I don't want him to have more perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. To eat more borscht and tater tot hot dish and just.
Yeah, I don't want him to be like, what's your place like in Minnesota? Betcha. And he's like, well, by the U.S. Bank Stadium, it's 8 below zero. And then somebody's like, oh, well, here's how we do it in Vegas. And like, here's the club. Like, I don't know, man. Let's make sure no one gets to him.
Well, I tell you what, you've got the hair. We'll get you a Zuccarello jersey. You can just fly down there and maybe just play the role a little bit. I
know. I'd feel safer if Zuki was there watching him.
He's going to be in the All-Star game. Talbot's going to be in the All-Star game.
Yep.
What event would you like to see Kaprizov do?
So what are they got some new ones that are sweet. This blackjack one.
Yeah.
So 2 Vegas ones. The coolest one looks like the one in the Bellagio fountains where I think they're sauce passing to like lily pads on the Bellagio fountains.
That would be awesome.
I'd like to see him do that one. I want him in the fountains.
You want him in the most marquee one.
It's so cool. Like that, I love, I'm a big Vegas guy, and I love that they incorporated the city.
All right. Well, we've been long enough, and
we have.
Yeah. So that's it. Stanley on 7th. That's the midway point of the season. It's okay to invest in this club. And
screw you, Big K.
Yeah.
We're here.
Till it's here.
Bye.